Bailey, and I'm going to turn this over to Tara to introduce her and our topic about how would you rate your love life. And thank you for joining us on Tuesdays, where we talk everything relationships and communication. So, Tara, take us away and introduce us to our fabulous
Oh,
guests.
yes. Good morning. I'm so excited to have Christy here. We met only a few months ago, and she has written a fantastic book. But let me just give you a little bit of backstory, or as the young folks say, I'm going to unlock the lure. After being married for 25 years and dedicating herself to raising her two sons as a stay-at-home mom, Christy found herself in the place she never thought possible. She was getting divorced. With nearly 2 decades away from the workforce, she had to quickly re-enter and navigate a new career path, all while reeling from the shock of the life she had just lost. Fast forward 10 years. Christy is the proud owner of her business as a real estate sales trainer, has a life by the beach that she calls beautiful, and is at peace with herself. But it wasn't always that way. Her journey getting there led her to write the international best-selling book, The Divorce Upside, Finding You After Losing Him. Brings me to tears. She is driven by her mission to live a life of joy and passion and to empower and inspire others to do the same. Welcome, Christy.
Well, thank you, Tara. I appreciate you, and I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. Before we dig into this really great book, I got to tell my story, right?
You do.
So, after Christy and I met and I heard a little bit, we really kind of clicked. I thought, you got to come on the Daily Huddle and talk about your book. So I ordered her book. And I get home a few days later from work, and my husband had opened the Amazon package with a book called The Divorce Upside, and it's sitting on the counter, and he just holds it up when I walk in the door, and he's like, do we need to talk? And I said, oh, no, it's just a book I'm reading for the Daily Huddle. And I kind of minimized it until I dug into the book. Y'all, it's so good. The stories are so relatable. I've been through a divorce, but even had I not, the stories are just like she takes you away and you just feel like you're on this journey with us. So give us a little bit of background about what inspired you to actually write this book. Let's start there.
Oh, I appreciate the kind words, and I'm glad we didn't do any permanent damage to your marriage. I'm sure that was a shock opening that back.
Oh, so great.
Yeah, I just thought of the Lucy, you got some splaining to do, you might be too young to know that reference, but what inspired me to write the book is, first of all, the short story is, it was just in me and it just had to come out. I just am expressive and it just was in me and it needed to come out. But several years ago, I got invited by a girlfriend to go, with a bunch of her friends that she was bringing from Utah and go to the beach. We're sitting on the beach, and this woman had just recently been divorced, and she was, talking about just the lack of missing her stuff. And she was like, I know it's not that big of a deal, but it's my stuff and I miss it, because you end up with half your stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
And I shared with her the story of when I was married, I was going through the same thing. And I mentioned it to a counselor, and the counselor, said, well, your kids are at their dad's house half the time, right? So they're with your stuff half the time. So aren't they with you half the time? And aren't your things, reminiscent of you and so forth? And it just clicked, and it totally changed my perspective. So I shared, this sentiment with her, and tears just started coming down her face. She said, I needed to hear that. Thank you. And I realized I was onto something, because we all go through the same stuff, right? And I learned through stories, and I tuck away all these stories, and I thought, I have all these stories to share, and maybe it will help somebody else. So that's how it came about.
Oh, thank you. So you wrote this book, and I want to tie it to our question of the day, which is about rating our love life. And when you suggested this question, my brain goes to this. Okay, so you've gone through a divorce. Now you're going to find a new, better love. But that's not what this question is about. So tell us what the question is about.
Yeah, that's the thing. When we talk about our love life, don't we always go to who is the romantic partner, right? How is that? And, that was where my brain was. Exactly what you just said, Tara, was I thought, when I was married, like I said, 25 years, like Tara said, I always thought, well, I'm not happy. So when I find the right man, I'll be happy. Right. And little did I know, it's been 12 years now. I'm not married, and we'll talk about, have I found the right man or not? But the love life that I found out that was the most important one was the one with myself. When I was married, I didn't love myself. And so that's what this is all about, is how do you rate your love life with yourself?
Yeah. I remember you sharing this with me, and you shared something that I found to be beautiful and vulnerable. And I would love for you to share it with our Daily Huddle family about the conversation that you had with your now ex-husband about your appearance.
Well, a little backstory is until the last, few years, I've, really, really yo-yoed with my weight. I've been anorexic. I've been, 70 pounds overweight, everything in between. And I always used food or the deprivation of food, to punish myself or reward myself or, whatever, right? And towards the end of our marriage, I had lost 40 pounds. I was feeling pretty good about myself, and I had to go out and buy all new clothes. And my ex-husband said nothing. Every day I was like, is he going to notice I have lost 40 pounds? I've got all new clothes. And he said nothing. And once we finally decided to get divorced, we had gone out to dinner one night, and we were just having this really vulnerable conversation. And I said to him, it really hurt me, when I lost 40 pounds and you didn't notice. And in a really vulnerable moment, he said, of course I noticed. And I hate to say this, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I just couldn't tell you looked good because you needed it too much. And I thought, what a jerk thing to say. What a jerk thing to think, just what a jerk. And it kind of crushed me. And I was just like, I just thought, man, he's a jerk. Well, fast forward a couple of years and I realized he wasn't a jerk. The man was just tired. He was tired of doing my job for me. It is nobody else's job to give us our worth.
Okay. Whoa. Slow down and say that again, because that is powerful. He was tired of what?
He was tired of doing my job for myself, for me. He was just tired. It's my job. It's nobody else's job to define our worth, our value, our worth, our beauty, our charm, all of that. If somebody else has to determine that for us, what happens when they leave?
Wow.
So it's our job. It's an inside job. I liken it to,
I like that. It's an inside job.
It is an inside job. Yeah, thank you. I always think of it like this, it's okay. Of course we deserve, and want, our significant other, our parents, our kids, our friends to love us, but we can't need it. That is like, their love is like the icing on the cake. Our self-love is the cake. We've got to bring our own cake to our own party. Theirs just gets to be the icing.
Wow. There's so much to unpack here. I'm a little bit speechless because this is just not only about divorce. What you're telling me really is that you had either never truly loved yourself or you had fallen out of love with yourself in an effort to, I think, define your value by being mother and wife.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. That's exactly it. We live by these labels, and that was all I knew. And so you're right. My book is on divorce, but it could be for anybody who just wants a better relationship with themselves, because that's what it caused me to do. And it's been a painful, long journey, but I have the best relationship with myself now because of that. It was just the impetus for me to get a good relationship with myself.
So, and I want to talk about your relationship with yourself, because I'll tell you what excites me about the way you talk about it, and I'm going to make a note so we can get back here, is it's very action oriented. It's not like, oh, go to the spa, get more manicures. It's not that at all, because that stuff sort of makes me anxious. Like, okay, come on. That's not really loving yourself. That's just taking a break from the hell, right?
That is really well said. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, but I don't want to dust over something, if you don't mind going here just for a minute, because I think you're speaking about something that so many people, probably more women than men, but so many people can relate to using food as a partner.
Yeah.
As you said it so well, as rewarding yourself, as punishing yourself, as it defining your value. I know that we only have 20 minutes left here, but can you give some tips of how you got out of the hell of that yo-yo of food being your partner, kind of?
Oh my gosh. I can't say there was like one thing, right? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of, working with counselors. I actually, honestly, even did a little stint in Overeaters Anonymous. I am a big fan of 12-step programs. I think they're kind of an amazing spiritual programs. And so, I think I changed, my relationship and thinking, a little bit through that. So it's just, I don't know that there's any one thing. It's just, been a journey. So it's something that, so many of us can relate to, right?
I and you know this, I study the brain a lot. And part of me is wondering if, so a lot of what I teach is helping people to overcome their addiction to dopamine by leaning more into relationships, which is oxytocin. And one of the relationships that you've learned to lean into is yours. And I am just like, wow.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That makes perfect sense then, right? Because I shifted, where those feel good, chemicals are coming from. That's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, yeah. So I do want to talk a little bit about how you have developed this healthy and strong relationship with yourself. Then we want to have questions, and I want to share the courses that you have coming out. So tell me a little bit more about finding such a strong and healthy relationship with yourself.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you said about the spa, because this term self-love is one of those that is so overused. Everybody talks about self-love. And I do think so many people get to, it's me time, I'm going to the spa, and that's okay. That can be part of it. And it is part of what I'm going to say, but it is not what it's all about, right? So I am a word lover, and I look at the word love, and you can use it in so many ways, but my favorite version of it is as a verb, right? So verbs require action. And so I thought, well, what are the things that I've done? What can people do to foster that self-love? And so I put it down into 5, I call them the 5 active steps of self-love. So the first is learn who you are. And, like I said earlier, especially with women, we tend to, put ourselves in the label. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm an ex-wife, I'm an accountant, right? And so the work is, who are you without the labels? So think about, like, what are your attributes? What do you like about yourself? Are you creative? Are you a hard worker? Are you passionate? Are you fun? Are you funny? Who are you? Right? So spend some time really going through what defines me, right? Who am I? What are you passionate about? Do you love mountain biking? I don't. Do do you enjoy Wordle? What are you good at? I'm good at business. All of these things. So spend some time really learning who you are without the labels. Spend some time, think about, like, when you admire somebody, how you tend to, like, oh, they're so this or that. Get yourself feeling that way about yourself, right? So think of all those good things. Think of all just the unique things that make you you.
Okay.
Then go to the things that maybe you don't deem good. Are you snippy? Are you judgmental? Do you have cellulite? What are these things that you don't like about yourselves? Because they make you you too. And by the way, those are the more interesting things about you, right?
Oh,
So
yeah. All right.
yeah, some of those words I used are me, right? So we want to be able to use that for the next step, which is acceptance. So find those things that you don't deem so good about yourself And can you find a way to accept them? So accepting them doesn't mean you can't ever change. You know, if there's something that you don't like about yourself, it's okay. You can change, but not because you're broken or wrong, because they're all just part of the whole, right? You can change if you want to because it's your prerogative. But find those things that you deem unacceptable about yourself and find ways to say they're just part of this unique, wacky package, you know, that is me. So that's the acceptance.
Love it. I love that so much. Okay.
Thank you. The third step is to have compassion for yourself, right? So you think about, you know, how much compassion you have for others, and it's time you do it for yourself. Like forgive your mistakes, forgive your blunders and your foibles, and stop playing that negative tape reel in your head. Realize that you are not your mistakes. And you know, if you can own up to, you know, something that you've done, do it, but don't let those things define you. So that's the third step, is compassion.
Okay.
The fourth is to honor yourself. Now, this one I personally think is a little bit hard. And you know, I know we've got men and women in here, but I think a lot of women tend to struggle with this one a little bit more. So stop doing things out of obligation. Stop putting your needs at the bottom of the list. Decide that your heart, your mind, your body, your soul, they know what's best for you, and be okay with that. And stay in integrity by not making yourself less than to make somebody else feel better about themselves. Be honest about your feelings, your needs.
So say that one sentence again, because I think there was a whole lot to unpack in that one sentence about staying in integrity.
Stay in integrity by not being less than to make somebody else feel better about themselves. I think we tend to shrink sometimes, right? Because if everybody saw our whole glory and goodness, oh, that would be too much for them, right? That's going to make them feel bad or uncomfortable. So stay in integrity by not making yourself less than to make somebody else feel better.
Wow.
So this one takes some practice for a lot of us. You know, this stop doing things out of obligation, all of these things. Like I said, I think this one's maybe some of the harder work. And then finally, the last step is charity. And here's where it's high time you decide it is okay to take care of yourself and to be generous with yourself. Think about all the ways you show generosity to others. And here is where you get to do it for yourself. So yes, you can go to the spa if that is you taking, you know, kindness upon yourself, nurturing yourself, right? So doing things that make you feel good just because they make you feel good for no other reason. You want to sleep in, sleep in. You want to go on a hike by yourself without walking the dogs or taking the kids or whatever. Do things for yourself just because it makes you feel good. So those are my 5 active steps. If you were practicing those 5 things all the time, can you imagine what kind of relationship you would have with yourself?
Yeah. And I have to tell you, each one of these for me causes like, wow, you could do some work there. Like when you were talking about, you know, the things you don't like, and you said something like cellulite or something, and it took me back to a very close friend of mine who used to work in, she is a nurse, but she worked as a school nurse. And there was this big glass window that looked out to the front of the reception area.
Mm-hmm.
And when there were only employees around and maybe me, she would pull up her shirt and smush her fat belly into the glass. I thought the confidence to do something like that with that gut, I just thought, I love that. So one of the first funny kind of stories that came to mind, like, why shouldn't we love exactly the way we're made? But these last two, honoring yourself and not shrinking yourself to help others feel better, and then do what feels good. That's probably my biggest struggle. Like if this isn't benefiting somebody else in some way, I tend to have some guilt around it.
Right. Then that's the thing, is that, you know, I say practice, you know, these things, and that means doing them over and over. You're not going to be perfect at it. You're going to be uncomfortable in the beginning, going and doing something just for you. We are trained. And again, I don't mean to diminish, the men here, but women are, it's ingrained in us. You've got
Oh
to
yeah.
take care of people. And, and a lot of men struggle with this as well. If they're not out working and providing, and sometimes they don't want to take the time to do something for themselves too. So
Just in another way. Absolutely. I want to, couple things. I want to bring Catherine in and then anybody else who has comments and questions. But before I do that, because if anybody has to sign off early, I want you to tell us a little bit about the course that you have and the retreat that's coming. And then I want to turn it over to Catherine.
Yeah, I am developing, it's almost done, almost live, a course that takes you through the book. So the book, I wrote it in 3 stages, and that is getting real. So getting real with who you are, letting go of the things that don't serve you, and then growing on from there. So even if you're not going through a book, if this is something that you're working on, my website is divorceupside.com. The course will be uploaded in just a couple of weeks. I'm pretty close to having that finished. So there'll be a live course. And then same thing, I am in the stages of planning a retreat, someplace exotic, fun, where we can really do, show ourselves some charity, and go someplace beautiful and just work on ourselves, bond, have a good time. So those are both coming. And would it be okay if I jump in and assign a little bit of homework? Am I allowed to assign homework to people?
You go for it. Let me just repeat though, we can find all this at divorceupside.com.
Yes.
Okay.
So if I could give you a little homework to go work on yourselves this week, first is if you go to divorceupside.com, there's a tab that says workbooks, and I have a workbook that will take you through these 5 steps that we just went through. So just download that, spend some time this week actually sitting with yourself in some silence and filling this out and doing some of the work. So that's the first bit of homework. And then secondly is to take, I know as we were going through the list, you probably thought of some things like in the charity department, what could I do that would be charitable to myself? Will you promise to do something today? If you can't do it today, if it's something a little bit bigger, by the end of the week, right? So do one thing that's charitable to yourself this week. And then the last one, this is just for fun. This is bonus if you want to do it. I was on this webinar during lockdown with, there's a spiritual author that I love a lot, Matt Kahn. And Matt Kahn says, when you add laughter to everything, it raises the vibration. So get a little silly with this. Look into the mirror. I've done this. It makes you have an amazing day. Look into the mirror, look deeply into your eyes and say, I love you. And then add, and oh, by the way, you are ridiculous. And it just reminds us to accept ourselves exactly the way we are and love ourselves. It's a great way to start your day. So that's my homework.
That sounds awkward, and I'm going to do it. So thank you.
It's
Catherine,
super awkward.
Chime in here. We're awkward, Tara, so that's perfect. This has been so good. I have so many questions, but one I'm really interested in. Early on, you said, "Oh, we'll get to whether I've found the right man or in a good relationship," and I am curious. How has this impacted your other relationships?
Oh, I love that question. I'll talk about the man thing because that's a whole other book we could do. But you know what relationships that it's impacted the most for me? Well, friendships a lot, because I was always had good friends, but I was always like one of those women that really like to be with men. Men are more fun or whatever. I don't know. But man, I've really just strengthened and had amazing relationships with my girlfriends. I mean, they're just such a big part of my life. And the other relationships are my sons. My sons are 25 and 29, and they're like, they see such a big difference, and you know what, this is going to make me cry. My youngest read my book, and which is super awkward because I'm really vulnerable in my book and talk about all the stupid things I've ever thought in my life. And my youngest said, I wish Dad would write a book because I feel like I know you now. And so that's really cool. Like it's really strengthened my relationships with my sons. So
okay, that's amazing. I mean, that's reason enough because I imagine this is hard. You get halfway through this and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. It's hard, right?
Yeah,
But to have that on the other side of it is
oh,
amazing.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very cool.
Beautiful. We only have a few minutes left, but I know we've probably got some comments and questions out there. Andrea says she's already downloaded your workbook.
Oh, yay, good,
That's
good, good.
awesome.
Get the work done. Do it, do it.
Yeah.
Have a good week doing that.
And Florence says, I remember telling my ex-boyfriend that I wanted to be cherished. I realized later on that I had to put a lot of weight on him. Presently, I am loving and cherishing myself. Go for it. Great
That's,
example.
yeah.
I love that. How do you get past, Christy, how do you get past the feeling of it feeling indulgent to do all this? Because I can imagine this is just going to feel gluttonous, take care of myself, give myself charity.
I think it's just in that word practice. If you were, going to go play, soccer or tennis or whatever, you've got to practice, right? You are not a great, you don't do an ace the first time. So it's little steps. If, going and spending a whole day or I've gone to Europe by myself. It was kind of indulgent. It was kind of amazing. If that's too much, okay, can you just take, a half an hour and go get a manicure or whatever it is, I think, we all are so different when it comes to it. So where are you and what's the next little step? What's just do it in bits and pieces.
I love that.
If you go for the gusto, you're going to be like, oh, I'm the worst, right? So do the little steps.
Gotcha. That makes perfect sense. I love that.
Yeah. That thought of going to Europe by yourself, how long ago did you do that?
I did it last summer, and if could I kind of talk about this issue of like finding the new relationship just real quickly?
Please.
I said
Getting gold. You talk about whatever you want to.
I said when I was married, I always thought, well, if I had the right man, I'd be happy. Well, years ago, my ex-husband and I were in Spain. We're in Barcelona. And we're at this really romantic little late night dinner, and it was so amazing. And I sat there kind of sad, like, oh, I wish I was here with somebody that I adored. And, so that was, 12 years ago, whatever that was, right? Well, just a couple of months ago in June, I do have a man in my life that I love very much. And we went to Paris. And we were sitting, in this little romantic spot. And I just thought, oh, this is so great. And, so full circle, then I did get to experience that kind of thing with somebody that I love. But here's the story I like even better. And that was the year before, somebody that I know convinced me I would have never done this by myself. I don't go anywhere by myself. Somebody convinced me, book a one-way ticket to Europe right now, right this minute. I did. I spent 2 months roaming, about 4 countries. And I was in Nice, France, and I was sitting in this square, and there was this street performer who was singing, and oh my gosh, he was amazing. He had like an Italian accent in France, singing American love songs, super romantic. And I was just sitting there with, my little glass of wine and a little, bite to eat. And I felt so full and happy and content. I kind of started tearing up. I was like, man, am I happy? And I had this flashback. I was like, oh my gosh, I remember sitting in Spain thinking, I'm not happy. I need a man that I love to be happy. And I was there by myself in a romantic setting, no less, thrilled and happy. And I was like, now I've got it. Like that's what we're looking for, right? So
yeah. So you said that when you were there before, you wished you were with someone you adored, and then you were with someone you adored yourself.
Ding, 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 right?
Oh, what a beautiful way to close us out. I wish you could stay on longer. I hope you'll come back.
I would love to. I really appreciate it. I think it's such a cool group of people, and what a great format you guys have. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, we have loved it. Absolutely loved it. Yeah, the people that show up on the Daily Huddle are growth-minded, open-minded, passionate, loving people. So welcome to the Daily Huddle.
Thank you.
I hope you'll find home here too. And I will close us out with our tenets. And the first is always love, and how fitting that is today. So let's start today by remembering to love ourselves through action, as Christy advises. So I'm going to take that one to heart. Also, remember to give of your time, give of your space, your talents, be open and generous. Also, remember to laugh, throw that head back, let those endorphins fly. Don't take yourself too seriously. And remember to stress less by getting your sleep, which is so important for your body, filling your body mostly with plants, and then, of course, getting up off that booty and moving that body each and every day. We thank you all for being on the Daily Huddle, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
you.
Christy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Christine.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great